The Great Rental Experiment has reached the end of its second month. Things that I found out this month? There are some things. When somebody is picking the choice of films for you and falling them at you, there are some things that happened that I wasn't quite sure or that I didn't realise were going to be problems. Stick around and you'll hear what those are. Welcome back to the second part of my Great Rental Experiment, which is me looking at ways in which to cut down my spending, but not my watching, of boutique Blu-ray releases. We've got a lot of releases to get through this week and a lot of absolutely fantastic movies. And I'm going to start off with the 88 Films release of Hatchet for the Honeymoon, which is a Mario Bava film slasher that looks at a man who kills would-be brides. Fairly simple on the face of it, and fairly simple in execution. It's a typical kind of thrillerish giallo aside, except it's very clear who the killer is in here. There's no hidden or black gloves or otherwise. It's a man who's driven by some sort of childhood trauma that we're not really sure and is not investigated till later, and he has a never-ending slew of would-be brides coming past him to pick out dresses and that he can take pictures of, and they end up dead. It's a wonder he didn't get caught sooner rather than later. Hatchet for the Honeymoon, good release, but it's in those hardback boxes of 88 Films, which I've always been a bit unsure of because of price. You know, I quite enjoyed the film. Do I want to spend £25 on it? I'm really not sure. It's one of those ones I keep on circling back to say, I probably would watch that again. Will I wait for the £15 release? Probably, is the answer. So we go from there and we go to Switzerland and a film that I'd stuck on the list because I'd heard some stuff about it. I think it was in the Women Make Film, a documentary from Mark Cousins, and it's Toni Erdmann. And here was the first of my problems that came this month. Toni Erdmann's just short of 3 hours long. It tells a story of, Toni Erdmann tells a story of a family, but very much of a man who becomes concerned for his daughter. His daughter's moved away from home. She comes home for a birthday, comes to visit, but she can only stay for a day. She's deeply involved in her work. She's doing some planning work for a lawyer company who she's very keen to impress and move her way up, but it takes all the demands on her time. And the father, who's a very jovial but dry humour kind of person, he's concerned that she's lost the meaning of life and that she's lost the meaning of what means to be happening for her. And so he follows her home, books himself on a plane to go meet her, with the initial premise that he's going to be there for a few days, but actually the more that he sees, the more that he becomes concerned and he sticks around. And in order to invade in his life, originally he can present it as the father, but actually after a while it becomes clear that she doesn't want him around there because it's interfering with her work. He presents himself in different ways with haircuts, wigs, kind of dental prosthetics on to put it in, and is more ridiculous. Yet you sympathise with him. As a character you sympathise with him because he only wants and is concerned for his daughter. He wants the best for her. He wants her to see what's going to happen in it. And I have to say, Toni Erdmann ends in one of the most ridiculous and brilliant scenes in cinema history. It's a pity that there's a coda that comes after it in some ways because it's almost perfect at that point, and we could have stripped 20 minutes off what is an extensive and lengthy runtime. But I will say that the length and runtime of this doesn't really interfere with the film because it flies by. You're so invested in the father as a character that you can't help wait to see about more. He's so likeable, and Toni Erdmann I think is a brilliant film and one that will definitely be picked up. Next up was another Italian film, and it's Middle of the Stone Women from Arrow Video. Again, this got another expensive release, £35 for a single film. It's got 4 cuts to the film, but I don't think they're extensively different from each other. And yet it's a film that I really enjoyed. It's a film that tells a story of a journalist that goes to do an article on this mill of stone women. So it's a parade of famous stone figures of historically significant women that updates and changes as time goes through. And when he's there, he meets an old flame and somebody he falls very deeply for. But also the owner of the mill, his mysterious daughter, who's also very beautiful, falls for him as well. And while there's attraction there, it's a bit unrequited, to the point that he maybe has killed her. He's not sure. And there's where the weirdness starts, because this isn't just a straightforward of love and love conquers all. There's weirdness and things happening here in this mill that need to be investigated and explored. And the film goes in those directions. It's an absolutely beautiful transfer. It's a great release. It's got some really good extras in it. Really enjoyed all of them. But it's £35. And even at £30, I'm not sure. But £25, if it gets down that level, I will pick it up, because it is something that I definitely would rewatch. Probably not all 4 cuts. There's a French cut, an American cut, a UK cut. You get the idea. And I really would like to read the articles of. So it is something that definitely has interest, but not just at the price that they have put it on. After that, we had an American film, and this received a Criterion release late last year, and it's Nightmare Alley. But I picked up or watched or got rented the Signal 1 version of Nightmare Alley, the Tyrone Power. Noirish film that's set in a circus with a confidence man played by Tyrone Power, who basically uses and abuses all around him for his own personal gain. Nightmare Alley is a brilliant film. I think it's a really great film, and I do think this is a really great release. It has some original commentaries. Michael Brook does one, for instance, so there's plenty to dig into. I think it's a film that's eminently rewatchable. I think it's a film that has got so much style and class in it, and especially within the context of, loads of us have seen lots of noir films, but there's no real noir film that's a bit like this, I think, and definitely needs explored in that way. So, Nightmare Alley, if you haven't seen it, is a great release. I think this is a great release, and will definitely be getting picked up. And then we had 2 Korean films that came along. There's a lot of stuff you get through on a rental basis, and the first one is The Tiger. And The Tiger tells a story of an area that is, tortured or beset by an extremely large tiger that is causing problems, let's say, and the local army decide that they need to take this tiger out and all the tigers out, and they enlist the help of the army to do so, but it's proven troublesome. But there is a very old hunter in the area that seems to have a relationship with the tiger from when it was young, and they want to get him involved to kill this tiger, but he refuses. He has a son that wants to be a hunter as well, and it's only when the son gets involved in the hunt for this tiger, wanting to emulate his father, that things really take off. And this was an original release by Eureka, and The Tiger's a great film. It stars old boy himself, Dae-soo Choi Min-sik, who acts as the old hunter in this case, and I think this is a deeply and powerful movie. It is sort of like a monster film, a bit like Jaws or something, in that there's, CGI effects, and it's very vicious and gory, as many Korean films are. But this film is about much more than that. It's about living with nature, living with the creatures, etc., that are around us, and finding a peace with those creatures. And it's a very spiritual film. And The Tiger can be picked up for a few pounds. So I have picked it up for a few pounds. It's on its way to me. I think it's a stunning film. And the other Korean film is The New World, which is again released by Eureka. This is part of Montage Pictures. And it again stars Choi Min-sik. He's a detective this time. A manipulative detective. There's been a death in a crime family, and there are certain usurpers on the way. So people that they could pick from within that group. So of the people that they could pick from, it turns out one of them is a police plant. So he's been an informant, or somebody that's been working undercover for many years, and there's a manipulation to take over this crime family by stealth, put things into place. It's a really long movie as well, as was The Tiger, and this one again is a real rompy, enjoyable watch. Again, can pick up for a few pounds. I think The New World's great fun. It's a twisty turny. Again, there's some action and violence involved, but it's not really about that. It's more about the intrigue and about people that are quite clever manipulating against each other. And it turns out there's a bit of a twist in it as well, so that's all something more to look forward to. A really good release as well, and those 2 Korean films I think are well worth picking up. So we've seen a lot of long films, and then in Drop Through the Door, another really long one. And this is The Wild Pear Tree by Yuri Bilge Ceylon. And it's a nearly 3 hours long movie. I'll have to say, by the time this arrived through my door, I was starting to get fatigue. You know, when you're in the house and you're picking your own films from the wall, etc., you kind of mix it up. God, I need a shorter watch. I need something that's a bit punchier. Didn't get that opportunity here, and I was just hit with long film after long film after long film. And The Wild Pear Tree, it probably affected my enjoyment of The Wild Pear Tree. The Wild Pear Tree is just about his son returning home from university. He wants to write a novel. He's finding that he's struggling to get the money to write this novel. All the while at home, his father is obviously in a lot of debt. Everybody speaks to, they're glad to see him. Oh, you're his son. He owes me money. And this starts to create doubt and suspicion within the family unit, the family circle. Is his relationship with his father damaged by it? Is the young man who's coming back from university to write, is he a bit full of himself? Is he even likeable? Is it somebody that you would even root for? Is there anybody in this film that you can root for? And it's a bit of it pushes at all the boundaries of those relationships. Now, ultimately, I think it's a really beautiful film. I think there's real poetry again in examining those relationships and how our perceptions of our parents, etc., are fueled by outside sources and how it can feed into that. And if it wasn't for the fact that it was so long, I think I would have a much higher opinion of it. And maybe that's because I'd watched so many of these quite nearly 3 hour movies in one after the other. Some 2 hours 20, some 2 hours 30. And it does bring into question whether renting and freely looking at this kind of stuff and going, oh, here's another long movie, here's another long movie, here's another long movie, kind of plays into, take that choice away with what you've just been sent, and it can affect your enjoyment of it. Now, am I going to rush out and buy Wild Pear Tree? Probably not. There is a box set of all his films. I believe that they are of a similar style. He's a very beautiful filmmaker. I think there's real beauty to be had in his filmmaking, and I think if you could spread his films out over an extended period of time, they're ones that you would really get a lot of joy out. But at the moment, for one watch, Wild Pear Tree is something that'll pick up at a later date. And the last one I'm going to talk about is a very recent release. It is Last Night in Soho by Edgar Wright. I got the 4K disc through in the rental service, so if you want 4K discs, you certainly can. And it's a film that I'd heard mixed reports about. I think it's fair to say some people loved it up to a point, and then fall off. And I did want to watch it in the cinema, but because I had been told there was a bit of a horror theme to it, I'd been given an 18 license, I knew that it was a risk for the wife. My wife can't get to the end of Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. Terrifies her. Doctor Who, a lot of episodes can't finish. Terrifying. So I thought if there's a extreme content in here, she wouldn't go to see it in the cinema, but she did give it a go in the house and watch it in the context of the house. So if she didn't like it, she could switch it off and that would be okay. And we both absolutely loved it from start to finish. I think it's stunning. I mean, not only is it stunning looking, I love the story, I love how it goes, I love the mystery of it, I love the darkness of it, I love the guessing game that I can do with it, and it also is it doesn't have a lot of extras. The extras aren't particularly long, they're well produced, but there's real insight into the filmmaking process here in ways that many other films take 4 times, 5 times as long to do it. It really gives you an appreciation for the camera operator and how the skill levels of some of these people are off the scale. Some of those scenes that they filmed that weren't done with special effects were hot. Oh my god, I can't believe that wasn't a special effect, etc. Just terrific from start to finish. Definite pickup for me. The music, the soundtrack, score, the filmmaking, the colour and the cinematography, which is from Park Chan-wook's cinematographer, which with given the colours and the use of colour in those films, fits. What a great choice. Last Night in Soho, I adored and would have been one of my top films of 2021. And that is my roundup of my second month, pretty much, of my rental experiment. It's still going really well. I love the variety that I'm getting. I love the fact that I've had a lot of those long movies, so once I reached that point, I rejigged my order to say, let's give me some more trash up here at the top. I looked for some of the longer movies and thought, let's not go there, let's go with this. And that's exactly what I did, and that's what I've started to get at the start of this month. So plenty to check back into, but something that I'm definitely keeping this going for the long haul. I may not have saved myself an awful lot of money. I've picked up films that maybe weren't on my radar beforehand, but they're films that I really enjoyed and that I recommending to you, so maybe you can pick them up at some stage as well. If you've made it this far, thank you very much for watching, and I'll speak to you again soon. Take care.